It's 11:47 p.m. You are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying a conversation that ended 4 hours ago. Except this time, you say the smart thing. The other person goes quiet. You win. None of this happened, and yet your jaw is tight, your chest is warm, and you can feel it. The exact feeling of having won something real. Here's the detail almost nobody knows. Your brain didn't replay that moment because it enjoys drama. It replayed it because, as far as your nervous system is concerned, that conversation is still open, unfinished. And an unfinished scene is something your brain physically cannot leave alone. To understand why, we need to go back, not to a single event, but to the exact mechanism sitting underneath every daydream you've ever had. This isn't about people with big imaginations or too much time on their hands. It happens to focused people, exhausted people, successful people. It happens in the shower, on a run, in the middle of a meeting you're supposedly paying attention to. The scenarios are different for everyone. For some, it's an argument that finally goes their way. For others, it's a disaster that hasn't happened yet, the interview that goes wrong, the diagnosis, the phone call they're dreading. What's at stake isn't just a few wasted minutes. It's your attention, your mood before you've even left the house, and in some cases, your relationship with what's actually happening in front of you. Most explanations stop at "your brain is rehearsing" or "your brain wants control." True, but incomplete. Those answers describe what the brain is doing. They don't explain why it can't stop once it starts. Everything seemed like ordinary overthinking, until researchers looked at what happens to the brain when a task, a thought, or a moment is left without an ending. Here's the first hidden fact. Your brain treats unfinished things differently than finished ones. Not emotionally, mechanically. A thought that reaches a conclusion gets filed away. A thought that doesn't gets kept active, sitting in working memory, quietly asking to be resolved. This is why you can forget a task the moment you complete it, but a task you were interrupted in the middle of will nag at you for hours. Psychologists have a name for this pull toward unfinished business. It shows up in memory studies going back decades, long before daydreaming was ever treated as a real subject of study. Picture the scene. You're mid-argument with someone, and they walk away before you finish your sentence. That sentence doesn't disappear. It sits there, technically incomplete, and your brain, quietly, automatically, keeps a placeholder open for it. Now here's where it gets darker. Your brain doesn't actually need the real person to close that loop. It just needs an ending. And if reality won't supply one, imagination will happily supply a fake one instead. That's the switch nobody talks about. The daydream isn't a detour from the unfinished moment. It is your brain's attempt to finish it. So if your brain just wants closure, why does it sometimes choose catastrophe instead of victory? Why imagine losing your job instead of imagining nailing the presentation? This is where the hidden cause gets uncomfortable. An unfinished threat is more urgent to your nervous system than an unfinished compliment. Your brain ranks open loops by risk, not by pleasantness. A conversation where you didn't get to defend yourself gets flagged as unresolved danger. A moment where you might have embarrassed yourself gets flagged the same way. So your brain reopens it, not once, but repeatedly, trying to simulate an ending safe enough to finally file away. Except there's a problem. A simulated ending never actually satisfies the system that's asking for real-world resolution, so the loop doesn't close. It just gets replayed with slightly different details again and again, like a search engine that keeps returning the same unfinished result no matter how many times you refresh it. Ask yourself this: if these scenarios were just entertainment, why do they show up uninvited? During your commute, before sleep, in the shower, moments when your guard is down and your mind has nothing else demanding its attention. That's not coincidence. Those are exactly the moments when your brain finally has bandwidth to go looking for every conversation it never got to finish. Stay with me, because this is the part that reframes everything you thought you knew about overthinking. The world was told that people who replay arguments or imagine disasters are simply anxious or overly emotional or too in their head. The reality is closer to this. Their brain has a longer list of open loops than most, and no reliable way to close them in real life. Think about what modern life actually offers for closure. Confrontations get avoided instead of finished. Conflicts get left as unread messages. Feedback at work arrives vaguely, if at all. Every one of these is a small, unfinished loop, and they don't disappear just because you moved on physically. They queue up. And unlike a to-do list, you can't just delete them. Your nervous system has to feel they're resolved, not just intellectually accept that they're over. That's the real reason a person can lie in bed at midnight refighting an argument from a decade ago. It was never actually closed. For years, this stayed hidden inside vague labels like overthinking or anxiety, which describe the symptom but never the mechanism. Not because researchers were careless, but because the mechanism sits at the intersection of memory science and emotion, two fields that don't usually get combined in a 5-minute self-help explanation. Here's what actually happens. Your imagination isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly its job, finishing incomplete experiences, using the only tool available when reality refuses to cooperate: a story.